Andrew, I do know that it is April Fool's Day today. So when we told producer John that we were going to have a show, do you think he was like, should I really fall for this one? What's going
I
on here?
I think I think the message he sent me was F off.
Our day jobs have been killing us,
Yeah.
which is why we haven't been able to record, but we're able to record today, so we're going to take advantage of it. Baseball season is back. You had mentioned to me off air, and I was thinking about this new conspiracy about these bats, the torpedo bats that the Yankees are using, some of the Dodgers are using. I saw Ellie De La Cruz hit 2 home runs with them yesterday. Where's our torpedo mics? How do we get some mics that
So
enhance our product here? How do we get better just
not
by
only
having...
not only do I have wrestling scoops, I also have baseball scoops, and I have word for word confirmation on how they figured out how to do these bats. And I have the prototype for them here in my hands. Here it is.
Do show.
Here it is. They just looked at the Iron Sheik with his Persian clubs, and they're like, "Hey, let's go in that. It can't be better. It can't be worse."
Yeah. Shape
Here's
it like a Persian club.
my little baby Persian clubs here that my father mocks me when I bring these out and I show him the workout. He goes, "Go in the garage and see what I left there." I go in the garage. He has like legit Persian clubs from like Iran. And they weigh like 150 pounds each. And this man, as a kid, he would just sit there in his Speedo doing this in my backyard like the Sheik for hours on end. It's unbelievable.
That's amazing. We do have wrestling to talk about today as well. There was an article. My friend BJ Bethel, when he hit publish on that article, I wonder if he knew what was coming as far as
I don't think he did.
The mentions... that his mentions blew up. I told him that, there's some courage behind putting something out like that. But on one hand, there's nobody from Max that is going to say positively or negatively if he's right or wrong, because they don't want anybody to know anything about those numbers. So they're not going to say anything. Tony Khan can't say anything. Even if he knows, he can't say anything. So really, it was BJ and his sources against the Twitter bots. And I should actually reach out to him and ask him who won that battle. But he had a number of 500,000 views, streams. What are we using for the terminology about the number that he put out? It's like, the way I thought about it was like, if you and I were to put up a stream on YouTube, like if someone clicks on that stream and stays on the stream for 10 seconds and then clicks out, we would get credit just as much so as we would if someone hung out for the whole time, if you're just counting views. But what would you determine that number to be?
So I have the article here, and if you guys are interested, you can go to BJ's Twitter, his X, and check it out there. It's on SEScoops.com, and the way that it's written, it says viewers. So it starts out, BJ wrote this, obviously a friend of yours. I've had multiple conversations with him. He does his work. He's a journalist.
And I will say the one thing that differentiates BJ from most of the wrestling writers is that his real job, like his legitimate shoot job, is in journalism. So he does day-to-day journalism in his local community, in his area. And he's covering, if anyone has seen his Vince McMahon stuff, like there's a lot of effort into the reporting that he does. It's not like someone just reached out to him and was like, "Hey, here's the number," and he like quickly wrote it up and posted it like a blogger. Like there's actual research and reporting into what he put out there. But just for the people who don't know who BJ is, like from all the people, John Alba does some journalism. Obviously, he grew up in that world. But BJ is probably the most real world journalist of the people that I know who also dabble in wrestling.
Yeah. What he said essentially was that they get about 500,000 views for Dynamite on Max streaming platform since its debut on the app. It's around 60 million minutes watched per show, with a plus or minus of 10 to 20%, depending on the episode of the show. This is a live +1, meaning live viewership plus 24 hours. It's a full day. This is again, either this means 0, means not much because we don't know how they're calculating this, or AEW is far hotter than we all believe it is. This is my opinion. I'm not going to discredit BJ at all. Okay, this is not. I've followed his stuff. He is, again, like I said, he's a legitimate journalist. What I would like to know is how the hell are these numbers getting calculated? Because if you're, is it possible that they have 500,000 clicks on that video in a day? It is. Also, let's say every time your video buffers, does that platform recalculate that as a new live connection? Because that was something that I reached out to somebody at Max and asked them. And what is fascinating to me is that, the handful of contacts that I have at Max, not Turner, but Max, right? Exclusive. Because one thing about these companies, they're very divided. It's a total bureaucracy. They're a gigantic company, and departments are the department, and they don't really intertwine. And everybody has teams that are doing essentially the same thing, but on different sides. The people at Max have never heard of these numbers. Okay, they're bullshitting me, and they're telling me I don't know the number. Okay,
right.
I'd like to think they don't lie, and they really don't know the number. People at AEW do not know this number. People at Turner that I spoke to do not know this number. People in sales that I spoke to don't have this number. I'm not going to throw around numbers that were given to me because they were all speculating on that number. Nobody, and I could tell in having a conversation. I talk with enough people that bullshit me all day long. Okay, Garrett knows. I talk to people that will bullshit me till the cows come home. I could tell when people are just pulling a number. I felt that most people that were giving me a number were not giving me an actual, hard evidence number. It was more of an assumption. Right. Now, with that said, depending on how it's calculated, and this is not anybody else's fault. I think the big story here is how are you calculating this number? Because there's another piece to this, right? And AEW, so this is another paragraph in here. While AEW's success on streaming has been noted by WBD, the numbers are far from the top streaming programs. Like Daredevil, Born Again, it got around 7 to 10 million viewers per episode. I will tell you, that was the catalyst for me to kind of question this number, because there is no way that 10 million people are watching Daredevil on television, because if it was an actual viewership of 10 million viewers, like how Nielsen does numbers, that would be one of the biggest shows on television right now.
Is that the Netflix show?
No, I think
Daredevil?
it's Daredevil Born Again. Where is this streaming? Yes? No? Where are you? Where is this
Disney.
streaming?
It's Disney Plus.
Disney Plus, yeah. That is that would mean, to me, that means that that's one of the number one shows out there right now, and it's not. So I don't know how these numbers are calculated. And to say that, the NBA on Max, here's another sentence. Sources said AEW has regularly outperformed some major hockey games in the app. NBA games on Max average around 1.7 to 2 million viewers, depending on the matchup. Again, is that 7 million? Is that 1.7 to 2 million people that clicked on something and then clicked out?
Yeah, and I think that was my YouTube analogy earlier. That is how I think about it. But in his piece, he used the 600 million minutes number, right?
60 million.
Or sorry, 60 million minutes.
Yeah.
And then if you divide 60 minutes or 6 million minutes by 120 minutes, which is a 2-hour show, I think that's where you get the 500,000 views. Like, I think that's the math that he's working with to get 500,000.
I don't know. Again, Go ahead, Garrett. And then I just want to add one more thing to this because of some other insight, but go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is the way that we will know a little bit more about what these numbers actually mean, because, data is data, statistics are statistics. You can use them whichever way that you want. But if their audience in the arenas and their pay-per-view buys go up, then there's more validity to these numbers.
Yes.
But the way that I sort of think about them is some of these people are doing exactly what you said, which is they're kind of clicking in. They're going, oh, what's on the app? And then they see a match that they're not interested in, and then they click out. And then they go and watch something else. They're like, not for me today. I'm going to watch this basketball game instead, or I'm going to watch this other app or whatever. Now, if that user is being counted just as much as the user watching for 2 hours, then this views number is kind of meaningless. But it looks like BJ was using a minutes number to get his number. So I would, he can, I'm sure he's going to do more, and he can kind of talk about that a little bit more how he wants. But what I want to mention before you get to your point is there is definitely a curiosity to some of these numbers, right? What these numbers could say is there are more people who are curious week in and week out about the AEW product than maybe we realized. How do you turn curiosity into actual customers who will then buy merch, buy tickets, pay for the pay-per-view, and we'll know more when Max actually gets that pay-per-view piece in the app, right? Because then if you are someone who is watching Dynamite or Collision through Max, hopefully there's some more information about, oh, by the way, if you want to watch this thing, you stay here and you can, and here's a whatever thing to buy the pay-per-view. So hopefully that translates to business. But if it doesn't, then what we may believe is that these superfluous Max numbers, they may just be curiosity numbers and not actual customers yet. So that is, but that is a significant audience there for Tony Khan to go, we have this audience watching here. Now, how do we turn those folks into actual customers? So that's what those numbers tell me, at least right now, before we have more information.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little insight. I worked with a major streaming service years ago, over a decade ago, and they had hired me regarding ad sales and analytics, okay, on how to translate the data that they are getting and into a sellable product. And I could tell you that, and I've done this with two different companies, I could tell you that streaming numbers, and this is why advertisers have been a little bit more apprehensive about streaming, and they've been slower to jump into the streaming. I mean, now everything is internet, everything is digital. As Donald Trump said, everything is computer. Everything's computer. If you don't have proper data, that's not bullshit, you will not be able to sell ads. And right. I would find if Max was putting this out, it would be extremely irresponsible of them to say that, because that is not a factual number as far as viewership goes. You know what I mean? As far as how many people are viewing this, the numbers don't lie. That's what I do. And if you're telling me that this company is getting 600,000 live viewers, 670,000 live viewers on TV, on linear, and then on digital, they're getting another 500,000. So I'm supposed to believe, and I'm not saying BJ is saying this, okay? I don't want people to get that twisted. I'm just going based on the numbers, right? Let's say Max gave this one. They have over 1.1 million plus one viewers, live plus one viewers. That is an astronomical number for that product, considering how cold the live attendance is. Mm-hmm. It doesn't correlate, because when they had a smaller audience without Max, actually, no, they did. You know what? They did have almost 1 million people watching live every week. And we know, based on speaking to Dave, I mean, I've spoken to Dave about this. I've spoken to other people about this. I've confirmed this number. The actual AEW viewership number, and I can't remember if this is +3 or throughout the week, is around 1.2 to 1.5 million people. And those are legitimate people that consume the content. That's not, clicking for a second and logging off. About over a million, let's say, anywhere from 1 million to 1.4 million people a week will watch AEW content. You're giving me another 500,000 on top of that and telling me that the attendance is not affected by that? Of course it is. It has to be, and I don't see it. I don't see any kind of correlation between those viewers and what their attendance is able to get, because when they were newer, they were bringing in far more people to their product. The buzz was more. Also, you brought up pay-per-view. That is perfect, right? That's a perfect correlation. Have we seen an increase in the pay-per-view buys? And, slightly, because didn't the last pay-per-view perform better than what was expected?
It was a good number, but the only number that we had last year, or the Revolution show last year was the Sting show, which performed above and beyond. But if you historically look at Revolution generally is a higher pay-per-view number, because what we get is you get the end of the year, and then you don't have a big show until Revolution, so you build up, and at that the appetite for the show is pretty big by then. But I would also say Max could be of some help there, as well as the card that Tony put together. So I think all of those things are the reason. Now, what are we going to learn this weekend with Dynasty? If Dynasty is down, I still don't know. That's a normal trend from last year, because when we went from Revolution to Dynasty, I think we saw a nice dip as well. So I think, you need more than just, a couple of numbers. We're going to probably need all of the numbers this year to really make any sort of judgment on it. But yeah, these are all of the things that we can look at. But of course, because of how the internet works and how people just work in general, you want the answers right now, and you want to make your conclusion, and you want to tweet something that is definitive because you need to go viral. And so that's why we were seeing all that mess yesterday, which I was able to avoid, by the way. Unfortunately,
God bless BJ, because I would not have gone near that because I would not be able to explain it. The only, really, does it really matter? Does it really matter? The number that I've heard is much lower than that. And this is me going based on my experience. I'm banking on the number that I have heard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this is a lie of a number. I just think that it's a calculation of the number.
Yeah, it's
dude. If they're getting
they're probably
a million.
Well, they're probably working with the same data, and they're splitting it up differently, or similar data. I would say it may not be the same, but you can. This is why the Nielsen numbers are the definitive number, is because they've been doing this for so long, and they have their way of breaking it down. But it's also why,
and that's not even accurate.
Well, yeah, because it's all you're using a small number of people to project a number. But you've said this before, which is, Turner and WBD and Tony Khan, they don't necessarily only use that 18 to 49 to make their decisions. They have other information that they're looking at to help them make their business decisions. So it's not, for us to be able to make sense of some of this stuff, we like to use Nielsen because they're tried and true. But the decision makers themselves aren't only using that information. They're using other information as well to make their business decisions.
Yeah, I'm very curious. I hope that there's a follow-up to this. I attempted. Nobody has heard. Nobody gets those numbers. I don't even know if AEW gets those numbers, what Tony gets exactly. I don't know what kind of numbers they provide Tony. And listen, if it is true, and this caused a big enough of a stir, I expect Max to put out, or Turner to put out, one of those wacky press releases where they claim 14 million people watched AEW, But you know what I mean? Like, if the number was really good, I'm telling you, and I talk to these guys all the time, it would have been published. They would have said, we had even if it was close to something that was big, they would have said AEW on Max has done the biggest number for live combat sport plus whatever. They would say something.
Okay, but don't they want those numbers to stay private because it actually helps their partners during negotiation. Like if the numbers were super giant and large, then the content companies would have the edge and leverage in negotiation. And if they're not large at all, then WBD would have the leverage in those negotiations. So I don't even know if they want, like, unless they had to publicly disclose them, which I don't think they do. I kind of don't think that they would.
No, they don't have to disclose anything. No, they don't have to disclose any of those numbers. They do have to disclose overall growth and metrics like that for their investors, but they don't have to specifically mention, direct viewership based on each content on there, because they don't need to sell it. They're not selling it the way that they're selling live television. I just have a really difficult, I have a great difficulty believing that almost nearly the same number of people that are tuning in on cable are tuning in on streaming. If that's the case and you have a direct split like that of your audience, I've been totally wrong about where linear is and where digital is my entire career. And I'm willing to bank that I'm not wrong here with this. Again, I think it's how you look at numbers. One of the companies that I was working with, they were giving analytics out to advertisers, and they weren't able to fulfill what they were selling them, and that's because their analytics were wrong. They were looking at live. They were looking at a live total number and not doing a combination of watch minutes versus the overall average of how many people tuned in. That's really how you figure it out. If you want to say it's a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes. That would be the only way that you could kind of standardize this and do it. But when you throw out a number like 500,000 people, and you don't give any kind of background as to, is it seconds? Is it minutes? Is it clicks? Is it reconnects? And I'm only bringing up reconnects is because that's how somebody said it to me. They're like, well, what do you mean? Is this people reconnecting after, the connection goes down? Can you imagine every time it buffers or every time it drops out, it's another viewer? Well, I give you the shittiest service ever to get those numbers up.
The thing that intrigues me is you had also kind of mentioned, like, if someone joins the live view and then jumps out of it. Like, I don't know how anybody can watch TV streaming that way. Like, I get so frustrated just with the idea of having to get out of an app and to go back in. Like, so I would probably just leave it on for a decent amount of time. But I'm assuming there is a user who goes in, checks and sees what's on Dynamite. It's like, I'm not into that. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Pops out, goes into a different app or a different or watching a different show, and then goes, 5 minutes is up, and then goes back into the Dynamite feed to see if they are, like, we don't get that channel changing necessarily on streaming just because it's harder. So that is interesting to me that people are doing that just in this impatient way.
Dude, DirecTV is selling that as a pitch point now. Do you know that?
Really?
Yeah, DirecTV, their new ads are essentially telling you, like, hey, remember how you used to be able to go from one channel to another? You could do that now. You could go inside of apps internally. So, like, you could click off on the show that you're watching on one app and then go into another show seamlessly.
That's interesting.
Very interesting. I think that's a positive, especially for must-see television. Dude, the landscape's different. You talk about key demos, you talk about viewership, but there has to be a direct correlation on your business based on how many people are tuning in. We see it with WWE, even though, and that's a fascinating thing too, because WWE I don't know, now with the Netflix era, have they increased in viewers overall versus last year today? I think they have, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that Dave tries to apples to apples those numbers.
It doesn't work. I know.
He's trying to normalize them as much as possible, but they're really hard to normalize. And, if we were to talk about the same thing that we talked with AEW, like, their live attendance and stuff is still through the roof. So I can't imagine that it's less. But there are still people who just will not mess with streaming. They want their cable TV, and they may get their fix of WWE on SmackDown or NXT, and they may just be like, okay, I don't need to watch Raw because they're going to do a good job of recapping all the important stuff on SmackDown anyway. So I don't want to mess with Netflix yet. And so I would imagine overall viewership can't be increased, at least in the US. If it's down a little bit, I think that's totally fine. But I imagine their younger viewership is up just because, there are people who are currently watching wrestling on television who have pretty much had Netflix in their lives for as long as they can remember. So they're really comfortable with how that.
And then you have
works.
my father, and then you have someone like my father that it comes to him with difficulty to find where something is and when to watch it and how to watch it. And this poor guy, I have to constantly trouble support his streaming. Have you tried to, does he have like an Apple TV or something that would he has help him? Yeah, he has a Roku, but I don't think it's the right platform for him. I think I need to get him something simpler. So, I do live maybe, I don't know, 3 miles away from the Apple campus here where I live. And it's not like they're giving us any money to say this. I am an Apple family, though. I have the entire Apple ecosystem. But so I'll just give you some real life experience here. Our own Dave Meltzer, he is DirecTV and cable, and that's all he really wants to deal with. He doesn't want to deal with any of these apps. Like, he would watch the UFC pay-per-views on his computer because just the idea of trying to get it on his television was just kind of a pain in the butt, so he'd watch him on his computer. We forced him to buy. We didn't buy it for him. He bought the latest Apple TV because of Netflix and WWE. And now he is like an Apple TV wizard. So that basically tells you about that product, how intuitive it is. But yeah, so I don't know if your pops would be better on an Apple TV, but it did. I was a little worried because, like, oh man, they're changing Dave's life here. And then he just was like, okay, I got to learn this thing. He figured it out. Now all of the UFC pay-per-views and Netflix and anything else streaming, it's really a piece of cake at his place. Yeah, my father's still dealing with it, so I gotta figure something out for him. It's so difficult. It's so hard. Don't you wish you could control his thing from your house so that you could just do it for him? I probably can. I probably could do like some sort of remote VPN or something, and then have like a Parsec install where I could control his Fire TV or his Roku. You know what I wish? I wish I could tell my father, put on channel 43, and there you go. It's on. Totally. I wish I could do that, but the times have changed. Totally. Let's switch gears and let's talk some WWE. Yeah. You and I haven't really talked about this Cody and Cena thing yet. I am so intrigued about what you think about the three weeks in a row of promo wars between Cody and John Cena. I really like this week. This was the week that I really enjoyed. That initial John promo, I did not dislike it like other people did. It kind of made sense. He was trying something different. The second week, I didn't love the face-to-face, and this week was probably the best segment that they had. I thought John came off fantastic. I thought Cody, it was a lot of truth in there in everything that they were saying, and I think it was really the truth. I think a lot of people feel that way about Cody, what John was saying, and it was just there was realism in it, so it felt real, and that's always the key. Can I challenge these guys though? Because there was. I saw some stuff about, these guys are edgy. You know what? Saying the name Vince McMahon on WWE TV, that's edgy. Talking about him as like this mysterious hobgoblin, not edgy. Like, by the way, that's one of my predictions for the year. We did a prediction show. They will mention him by the end of the year. Yeah, they should have done it. They should have done it on Monday. You're telling me that if a settlement comes in, that man, they're not going to listen. Everybody's soulless when it comes to money, right? Every company. I'm just saying, every company is soulless. If you believe that you could get something humongous out of it, I'm not blind for 1 second to believe that they will not okay Vince McMahon to return to television once things settle. My prediction is he gets back into the TKO family through the boxing. That's my prediction. Mm-hmm. Okay, so to me, not edgy. You know what else wasn't edgy?
when they're talking about sons of billionaires, just say the goddamn name Tony Khan. Can you say Tony Khan? Can you say AEW? Or are you going to get sued? Like, that's edgy to me. If you want to take this thing up, mention AEW. Mention Vince McMahon. Mention Tony Khan. I don't like this specter of, ooh, edgy. They're not being edgy. They're dancing around these topics still. Okay, now I will agree with you. This was the best week of the 3 weeks. However, one of the reasons why we like pro wrestling is because there is a build-up and then there is a fight. And it's not a real fight. Yeah. It is a simulated fight. But if you think about stand-up comedy or Wild 'N Out with Nick Cannon, where you have these comics just talk about each other's mamas, like, you know, and try to snap on each other. That is there as a war because they do not get in a fight. You do not want to see them fight at the end of that. Or an MC battle. You know, the 8 Mile movie with Eminem and I forgot the other guy's name in the like. You want them to do the war of words because you do not want them to fight. That's not where you're going. In wrestling, we actually get to see them fight. So 3 weeks in a row, these guys are just talking about each other's mamas, and they're not doing anything about it. And I'm like, enough. Like, we need to split this thing up. Yeah. We need to do something else because it's the same thing over and over and over. If this was week 1, I would have loved it. Being week 3, I was kind of over it. The other thing that I'm over is John Cena's vocabulary. Like, he's the most robotic person in the world. Like, nobody talks like that.
Yeah, he uses he has a very strange cadence.
The words that he uses and the phrases that he uses, it's like reading his Twitter feed, like Confucius Says by John Cena. And then he says, you know, I think in his mind, he became Triple H in this promo because he was talking about how people think that he buries other people. Like, oh, I buried all of these bodies. No, dude,
I
not
never
Triple
thought
H.
that.
No,
but I never thought that about him. Nobody ever did. Nobody ever said like, oh, that guy. He's not. Listen, even the people that hated John Cena in his peak, that was not something that people said. It wasn't his fault. Everybody was like, oh yeah, that's where the company's going, and they wanted goody two shoes. It's Vince. One line I really like though is when he said that he worked too hard. What was it? He worked too hard to make the WWE Championship a symbol of mastery, and it's being carried by someone who's mediocre. I thought that was a great line by him.
Okay, but did you like the term
I think he feels that way.
Mastery. Okay, but did you
I loved
like
it. Yeah, that popped from me. I loved it. You know what?
Okay.
That was it for me. That made me you know what I was? That was me doing my job. I'm like, "Ooh, I like that. That stood out to me." That's a good line because it stood out.
He called Cody a common fan like them.
But he wasn't.
Now,
he was
okay. But okay. What
And then he called him a Nepo baby.
That was funny. Okay, but
which is it?
John Cena dressed like a fan in the early 2000s, which was part of his charm. He had like the baggy jorts, the hip hop gear, the jerseys. He looked like a part of the audience when he started his career. That's what helped him get over. Cody is in these like really expensive suits. I don't see any of the fans wearing those expensive suits, so I did not.
Me and John Alba, when we go to a show, we're always in a suit.
He called Cody an errand boy who got lucky. So some of the vocabulary, I was a little kind of tired of the vocabulary, by the end. But one thing I will say that's positive. So I was talking to somebody about this. My buddy Pedro. We did a show together on Fight Game Media. You can check it out. The latest Observe This show, where we kind of broke down some of the things we wanted to see between the two of these guys in the program, and I think they got close to what I wanted by the end, which is this comparison of John Cena, who carried the WWE from 2004 through 2013 or whatever the time frame is that we think was Cena time. And then he had to hand that off. And it wasn't easy to hand off, right? Because who was the chosen one? Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns was supposed to get this handoff from John Cena, and the fans did not react the way that WWE wanted them to react. They actually dismiss Roman Reigns as that babyface. So it's like, okay, who's the next John Cena? Who's the next John Cena? And they kept trying, and then finally in 2023, Cody was like obviously on his way. And the thing that we kind of wondered, and you and I wondered it on this show, is the second Cody wins the belt, how soon before the fans turn on him?
Mm-hmm.
And then they didn't.
Yeah.
So if you're John Cena and you carried the WWE as Vince McMahon's chosen one for all of those years, and the fans, you know, some of it was the fans just like to play the Cena sucks, let's go Cena thing. But then you create this environment to where Cody Rhodes can take over and actually run with the ball. That is something to dig into. And so it looked like they were kind of going there. And I would like to see more of that, because John Cena, if this was like a real competition, he should be kind of bothered that he was treated in this way, and then the fans treat Cody in this way. It's kind of like the pioneers in sports lay the foreground so that the people who take the baton, they're richer and the sport is more evolved. And so it's kind of something like that, which is I wish that they would lean into a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes. We have 20 days. You know, they have a couple more shows that they're gonna build on. I'm very curious to see where this goes with them, because it could be a fantastic main event for WrestleMania with a huge moment, or we're going to come on the next day and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe they did that mess."
Yeah,
like what's gonna happen? The Rock's gonna show up again, and Steve Austin's gonna show up and stun him, and then the Undertaker will show up, and Roman will show up. It'll be a whole thing.
I mean, but they did that last year. They didn't do it again.
I don't know. It's a new WWE. I don't know what I don't know how to predict this company anymore. You can't really. Yeah. A lot of those, obvious Vince moments are totally out the window, and you have different people doing creative, and different ideas are now. They're more willing to try new things. And if it doesn't work, no big deal. If it works, great. And I think that's where we're seeing right now. I think that's why they've pivoted on John's promos compared to, 2 weeks ago to today. I can't believe that they've committed to the jorts. And you know what? What a heel thing for that 40-something-year-old man to wear.
You know what, though? My teenage stepson, he kind of thinks that they're slightly back. Like, he's kind of rocking
jorts?
Them. Yeah.
No. Maybe on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Our shorts are getting shorter and shorter.
No. For the teenage crowd, though.
Yeah.
I think they're kind of being okay again, where they were absolutely not okay. Not that, for a while. They haven't been.
You mean to tell me that my...
Yeah. They all go to thrift. They all go to thrift stores, right? Like, that's where they get all their gears.
Dude, do you still have your boss carpenter jeans? Do you still have those that are 4 sizes too big? I still have all mine in the attic.
I do not, but this is what my stepson picks up at the thrift store. Is he finds all of these vintage jeans, and he's actually learned how to sew, so he shapes them to how he wants to. Yeah, he's pretty
that's
into
awesome.
fashion. But it's a lot of retro
great.
fashion, right? It's kind of a lot of old school stuff. So he's totally into that. So he's just buying thrift stuff, and he's like for
awesome.
him. And you know what the other thing is this is kind of interesting. He kind of uses it as a side hustle, because he'll take, he puts some time and effort into fixing them the way that he wants to fix them. But he buys some jeans at the thrift store for like $10. He puts some pins and needles in them and changes the seams and such. And then he sells them to his friends for like $25 because they want them. So that's a little bit of side hustle for him. All right. So WrestleMania, it is in 3 weeks, and I don't know if John wants to throw the F4W insignia up there, but I did want to mention the Vegas thing. I know we're getting close, but I know there are some F4W Vegas tickets that are kind of getting close to the end. So just go to f4wonline.com/Vegas and you can find all that stuff. I'm getting excited, man. Like, I got an idea, or actually Tony Leader sent me an idea, and I was like, you know what? If Andrew was there that weekend, that's exactly what we would do. We would be in the Airbnb.
Go to the Peppermint Hippo. No?
Well,
okay.
Well, that's
we're going to Sapphire.
Not during not during WrestleMania. That's the after party. But like, we would do like a watch along from the Airbnb, and we'd live stream. We're live pals to watch along. So that's kind of something. I would love that. If when we get together again, we could do something like that. But anyways, I just wanted to throw that up and check it out. And we're getting close. 18th, yeah. So like 2.5 weeks, man. This is crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. So last thing, we have a pay-per-view this weekend. I don't know if you are aware of this. AEW Dynasty from Philadelphia. They're doing a lot of stuff for the Owen. We have a Jon Moxley and Swerve Strickland title match. We have Timeless Toni Storm, she's kind of on fire right now. I thought I don't watch Collision all the time because it's really like my weekend. It's kind of like my break from wrestling. But I saw that Athena was going to be on Collision, and I was like, I want to check it out because I've been dying for them to put her on AEW. And then the start of the show was this fantastic Toni Storm promo where they spotlighted her and they shot it much different from normal promos. And, she is really so into that character. And then they set up this Megan Bayne thing. So I'm actually kind of interested in that program. But where are you with Dynasty? It almost feels like there should be like 2 more weeks left before we have this pay-per-view, but it is this weekend.
Yeah, it crept up. It really creeped up on all of us. But what I'm curious about is the setup for the next 2 pay-per-views. And this is what this show really is right now. You're going to have some tremendous matches. I mean, between the world title match and the international championship, maybe they'll add a continental match to the card. This is going to be a good show. Now, it's a matter of where is everything falling into place, because, Jon Moxley's been dominant as world champion. Swerve won it last year at Dynasty. It looks like Will Ospreay is going to be challenging at the pay-per-view. That's what it feels like. So I don't know how they're going to get there and who the players are in those pieces. I mean, we know that it's going to be Kenny and Okada. I mean, that has to be it. I believe they're going to unify these belts, or that's the worked idea here somewhere. So it's a mega match, and everything else, you can kind of piece things together. But the world title is the big question here. Who's going to be the world champion going into All In during the summer?
Okay, so let's say at the finals of Double or Nothing, Will Ospreay beats, I don't even know who he would beat. And he becomes the number 1 contender, and then that is the title match at All In. Will Ospreay versus whomever the champion is. Do you want that as a viewer? I'm talking about you yourself as a viewer. Do you want that person to be Swerve, or do you want that person to be Moxley?
I think for people are gonna get mad, but I think it needs to be Moxley. Because of the heat,
right.
You got to heal. I don't think the Will's big moment of being the guy that dethroned this guy that's been attacking AEW for months. It should be Will beating him at that big moment, or it should be Swerve beating him in that big moment. Now it kind of changes everything. We got 2 fan favorite baby faces facing each other. The impact of it really kind of falls.
Yes, I agree with you. If we are going to anoint Will as the guy, him toppling Jon Moxley, who's getting
would be
out
the
of
big
here
one
by the skin of his teeth. Now, but I also understand, and look, most of the time when I'm looking at social media for wrestling opinions, it's a really vetted opinion. My timeline, I don't follow goofy people unless they just get retweeted into my feed. So when I saw outside of after the last main event where Moxley tapped out Copeland, and I saw how many smart AEW fans were like, this is it. It's too long. AEW is not listening to the fans. They had this great pay-per-view, and it was marred by this terrible main event, and John Moxley wins again. I was so surprised because, again, my Twitter, the people who I follow on Twitter are really strong. And so whenever I do seek out those opinions, I'm usually finding some really good ones. And I was so surprised. And after that show, my overall thought process was, I think they figured it out. And what I mean by that is we got past Orange Cassidy and Adam Copeland, and now we're cooking with grease here. We're cooking with Swerve. We're cooking with Ospreay. My heart of hearts wishes Omega would be involved in that, but he is not currently. Whether Hangman is going to be involved in that, MJF, whatever. Now we have like 4 or 5 folks who are really talented main eventers, and any one of them could beat Moxley. It's whomever Tony Khan chooses, and we think it's Ospreay. But if he chose that guy to be Swerve, and instead at All In it's Swerve, getting you could pick any one of the 3 or 4 or 5 guys, and I think it'd be rock solid. So that's why I think, like you, we should hold off and tell the story all the way to All In, because I think if they pivot off of Moxley now, it's almost like you did all of this stuff to get to here, and then they stopped. And is Swerve and Ospreay will probably be a better match, but is it going to have the same teeth? And is Ospreay going to get the same hero's treatment if he beats Swerve, or maybe Swerve beats him? But if we're
unless they have a plan for. Unless they have a plan for Swerve to really topple John Moxley, and that's the big moment that we get, at this pay-per-view, it's still far out there. You still have months of this.
Yeah, I think so.
The other thing is, AEW doesn't ping-pong that world title. They never do. And maybe they should. Maybe now is the time. You could swap that title, between 3 people in a matter of 2 months, between Moxley, Swerve, and Ospreay.
Yeah, totally. If you wanted to, for sure,
you could do that too. I'm very curious by that. I really am. I do. I'll tell you off the air. But I do want to see. I do want to see how this plays out, because it's a world championship. It sets the tone for the next who knows how long. And you're in a very important period right now. I said it from day one. 2025 was going to be a big year for this company to correct a lot of the wrongs that happened over the last 2 to 3 years. They have momentum right now. Things are shifting. I mean, not a lot of momentum, but they do have momentum. And you could tell in those buildings that the crowd is really enjoying these shows. Just a matter of growing it and keeping it up.
Do you ever sense, or do you, maybe even more sooner than later, but do you sense that we are getting to a spot with AEW, with Toni Storm being as hot as she is and Mercedes being as great as she is, to where we could actually get the women main eventing one of these upcoming pay-per-views?
Well, we got it the last time. We got it wasn't a pay-per-view. Grand Slam wasn't a pay-per-view. Yeah. You know what? If they did Grand Slam the way that they were intending on doing it, it would have been a pay-per-view, and we would have gotten our answer there. I 100% think that Mariah May world title match with the last one with Tony could have main evented. 100% a pay-per-view. And that was a remarkable match. It's just placement, and it's uncharted waters for AEW, but you could see how strong that women's division is getting. You could see how Mercedes is just fitting in perfectly there right now, and that what Tony's done with that character. So I think we'll see it. I don't know when, but am I saying it needs to be Double or Nothing? No, but it could be any of the other pay-per-views. It could be Full Gear. It could be anything. If you have the program and it's hot and people are invested in it, why wouldn't you? And I don't think anybody in AEW is thinking like, well, women can't main event in 2025. No, of course they can. But you just have to have the right positioning for this. I think Grand Slam would have been it, if it was a pay-per-view, but obviously it didn't happen like that.
And here's another question. And let me bring in this up because Double or Nothing historically has this Anarchy in the Arena match. Could you actually do either an Anarchy in the Arena or a Blood and Guts War Game style match with the women instead of the men?
I think they're eventually going to do it, but do they have that big of a captivating women's roster? You know, that's where you need that. That's where the question is.
Yeah, I mean,
do you have enough talent? I mean, yeah, you have talent, but do you have people that are over to that extent that, wow, this is a mega moment here where these women are just going to go out of the 5 women on each side or whatever, however you're going to do 4 women, 6 women.
So they've already done Blood with Tony and Mariah. There's crazy WWE rumors about Mariah right now, but she should be back on AEW television if she is part of their immediate plans, because I thought she did a really great job. But Tony and Mariah and Mercedes and Megan Bain, Jamie Hayter.
Where's Camille?
Now we have Billy Starks. Now we have Athena. So there are folks. I think you could build up these teams. The one that I want, the Queen of my heart, Queen Aminata. I hope she gets a nice little boost here to be on television more. Though I guess she was off. She hurt her. She has an injury of some sort. But Camille, who actually was in a major motion picture, got quite a bit of amount of time as part of the Queen of the Ring movie, and then still nowhere to be seen on AEW TV.
Yeah.
How did you like Tony's answer, by the way, when they asked him about her?
Yeah, what did he say?
He said something he totally did storyline stuff. Oh yeah, we still need to figure out who took her out, and when she comes, Tony went into like storyline mode. I thought was funny. I like that.
I love that. Only in wrestling can you be asked a legitimate question and then you just pretend and you go into storyline, and it was like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. I get what he's doing. Can you imagine like a director? Someone asks him about, like Scorsese. They're asking Scorsese, like, what was it like with Robert De Niro when this happened off set? And you're like, in Goodfellas when he was kicking the guy's head in, he was great.
Yeah, exactly.
My sign keeps falling, and I feel like it's crashing on me.
Your sign?
Yeah, my sign here, my ECW sign. Keeps
your
falling.
ECW sign. Got it. I don't know, man. The sign's too hardcore. It just wants to crash and break into things. So I guess, the reason why I brought up the women main eventing thing is because we've started to see Tony Storm segments main event some of the shows. Like I think the women main evented Dynamite like 2 weeks in a row or something. And so I kind of was wondering, like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder if they're doing some tests here. And I know, Triple H had his whole statement about, we're not going to shoehorn people into the main event. They're going to force themselves in the main event or whatever he said. But I do think that if you have a plan and you want to make your women's division more important, putting them into more important spots, and maybe, if you lose a couple of viewers here and there because the audience doesn't buy it quite yet, you kind of have to kind of force them to accept it. And now, if your metrics go haywire and they tell you, okay, we don't like this, then sure. But I would like to see them. Yeah. Let's get to 3 matches on a pay-per-view with women, or some more important stakes.
Yeah,
I would like to see that.
I think, by the way, you got a nice message here from Pro Wrestling Joker. Hope you boys are doing good. Very excited to party with you in Vegas, Garrett.
Yeah, he and I we'll see a lot of each other in
we had Vegas. Glassdoor Gamer says AEW has new sponsors, it seems, lately. Yeah. Their sales team's working hard.
Good for them, man.
Yeah.
This is the work. Now I'm not saying that, that those people don't work hard. Obviously they work hard. They have a smaller team, but I know Tony is leading everything, but you want to see more business opportunities and taking advantage of certain things. And the streaming thing is part of that. Like it's interesting to see how many people are actually purposefully watching on Max. I still watch on cable, by the way. How do you watch AEW?
Very schizophrenically. Sometimes I'm on Max, sometimes I'm on TV, sometimes I go to TV to see a comparison because I start counting bit rate to see which is the better feed and what looks better. I'm not the normal person for this. Most people just watch whatever they're watching. I'm bouncing around on different platforms.
I don't actually watch on cable, but my Hulu TV is more like cable than it is like the app, the Max app. The reason why I still watch through Hulu TV is because their mechanism for fast forwarding and skipping is much smarter than the Apple TV app for Max. And so it's just, I'll start the show 20 minutes late and then I'll get caught up to live. And it's just much easier to do with that Hulu Live app than it is with.
So I test on Hulu because I have Hulu Live also, but I have YouTube TV as well. And I have Max. So I'll bounce around. Yesterday I lost my mind because I couldn't watch the Mets game because I was in a blackout. I was blocked out from seeing it because it's in New York. So I couldn't watch on MLB. They wanted me to give them another $23 to watch it there. I was like, this is crazy. I can't even watch the Mets in New York. I got to jump through all these hoops.
What is is it the RSN that is in a different?
It's SNY. So SNY, I had an SNY account. So I would watch on SNY if I couldn't watch it on cable, on SNY cable. YouTube TV doesn't have SNY. So I can't watch it on TV, on cable. So I went to the SNY app. Guess what? SNY app is done. You can't watch games on there anymore because it got absorbed into MLB. So I go to MLB and I'm blocked out. They want me to pay them $25 more a month to watch my local team.
Yeah.
So I was like, hell with that. I'm just going to go on a VPN. And the VPN didn't work. Then I couldn't get my other account to work because I was going to put in my work account because that has it. I couldn't get that to log. It was a nightmare. I felt like my father. I felt like every over 55 that doesn't know how to use these devices.
Well, I'm happy because I'm still on the NBC Sports Bay Area, which they did bump up the tier to for you to pay more on the local cable networks, but through Hulu, I'm sure I'm going to get bumped up a little bit more at some point because of that. But I'm still able to watch it, so I'm good. Because if that stopped happening for me and I had to log into all these different apps to watch, I'd be in hell. I would not like that.
But this is part of that discussion, right? It's digital versus linear, and we're in a big transition period here. And AEW is in the same thing. That's why we're discussing whether or not those 500,000 viewers, what it means.
Yeah.
From where, absolutely. How, So it's changing of times.
All right. Well, I hope everyone who watches the AEW pay-per-view gets their money's worth for this one, AEW Dynasty, and I'm sure we will keep tracking the road to WrestleMania. By the way, I'm not all that invested in this card so far, but I think I'm just dissatisfied with a lot of the WWE TV right now. But I know being in Vegas will be a different story. You'll feel all the excitement, and I think I got word that I'm headed to Wale Mania as well. So that's
shit.
That's really what
Dave going to Wale Mania with you? Please tell me Dave's going on stage at Wale Mania this year.
I don't think so. I don't gather that Wale Mania is something that was on his list, but it was on mine.
Really?
It was like it was the number one thing circled on my list was Wale Mania.
I would be at Wale Mania too. It's right up my alley. I probably see some friends over there.
Yeah, you would. You totally would.
I definitely would. Yeah.
All right. So we'll be back at some point.
Can you imagine me? Can you imagine me at Wale Mania dancing like Bobby Shmurda on stage?
No, I actually can't imagine that. I would love to see it though.
I'll tell you very quickly. The hood from New York comes out of me very quickly. The Queens comes out of me very quickly. You put me in the right environment. I start dropping. My letters start changing in words. Everything changes about me.
What's the Tribe Called Quest, right? Weren't they from Queens? The Boulevard Linden.
Yeah, Linden Bully, Jamaica, Queens, St.
Linden
Albans. Yeah, Linden Bully.
There you go. I did make sure that the last time I was in New York, I did see Linden. When I was driving, somehow I was in the area and I saw Linden Boulevard. I got really excited. All right.
Yeah, I would go the other way.
All right. Well, so we'll be back at some point. No promises yet as our schedule continues to kind of evolve, but love doing this. I'm glad we had the free April Fool's Day. Always love hanging out with Andrew for the hour. So for Andrew, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.